Hi, Dav here, and today we have a new episode in the Art Review series. And today we'll be checking out the work of ZHoU or ZhoouU here on Instagram. Now, they do have a very unique abstract sort of style. It reminds me a little bit of the work of Welby or Madao. And it's yeah, you do lose a bit of clarity sometimes, and sometimes I think you have to zoom out a bit to be able to see what they're actually like illustrating. But it's interesting, like it's so captivating to look at just because the strokes are kind of everywhere, and it sort of engages your curiosity, I guess. So I think that's what makes their work exciting. Now, they do a lot of fan art. For example, in this case, as you can see with the tag at the top left, it's X-Men, I'm guessing. So I believe this is Storm. I don't see her name there, but I think it's Storm because the white hair and everything. Here we have the laser guy. I forgot his name. Oh god. And this one, I think it's from the redhead chick with like the powers. Well, no, they all have powers, so that's kind of dumb of me to say, but I don't really follow comics, but I did watch the movie where she she was basically fighting or they were all fighting a bunch of aliens. So basically X-Men were like they were the representatives of the human race, right? So um but well, those who had powers anyway, these mutants. So here we have Wolverine, pretty cool. Very strong chin here. But look at how it's so like graphic, right? And I feel like a lot of rules are being broken here, but they're not so broken that it doesn't make sense. Um, Definitely the silhouette is there, the shape design. You can tell just by, the thickness of the beard, the way the hair is done, the pointy sort of edges or corners of the ear. Um, and even his costume. And I think recently because of the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, more people are exposed to the original. I believe this is the original costume or design of Wolverine. It's the yellow, the bright yellow sort of thing, with the silver maybe or the black sort of accent color. Even like the splatter or the you can even see some halftones in the middle bottom or in the bottom middle. Some sparkles here and there, but it's drawn in like a via line work. Um, I also noticed that they do leave in a lot of white space. I'm not sure where this is from, but yeah, basically it's oh Dragon Ball. I can see it at the let me just zoom in here. I do see a little bit of noise texture, right, in background. And I guess their work or their style is very like you would see this sorts of approach. Like it feels like an editorial illustration because I do know I've mentioned this plenty of times on the art review series. Editorial illustration has, I think, a lot more experimental styles. That field has just it has way more variety, I think, than any other like visual art field. And I feel like ZhouU's work is a good fit for that space. It reminds me of another artist aside from like Welby or Madao. I'm forgetting the name, but I feel like the last name was it sounded French or something. And I remember them using pretty much the same saturated colors, but they also loved using the rake brush. So the name I can't remember, but I remember seeing them on ArtStation. They do a lot of character designs. Um, and I feel I'm trying to recall it, but hip hop kind of themed characters. That's what I'm remembering. But yeah, I'm not sure what Baxter is this. Oh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I haven't seen this character before. It looks like a bug to me, but look at how graphic it looks. Right, it could be like for a poster or something. it feels very modern. Basically, it's not fully a painting. It's sort of in between painting and graphic design. You know, one of you mentioned, or one of you asked in the comment section. I forgot which video, but you were asking like which or some suggestions on artists who are good or who do use a lot of negative space in their work. I think ZHoU here is a good example of an artist who uses negative space in their work. Because they do limit themselves to this sort of sized, it's like a poster size sort of image. Well, is it? Or it's like a 1 by 1, I guess. Um, and then they try to make the character, they know how to frame the subject, right? Sometimes it's just a white background, sometimes there's some color, sometimes there's some kind of a, in this case, a sun, right? There's a secondary kind of shape to help make the character pop out even more. I forgot this guy's name. Splinter. And I also notice they do use quite a bit of brushes. So they have that sort of brush variety there. And again, I think that helps make your artwork a little more interesting because you're almost like like every time you look at a different sort of spot, there's always like a new color, a new texture. So those varieties, those different types of varieties stacked on top of another, I think it's gonna help you stay more with the image, I believe. So these are the Ninja Turtles, right? I forgot their name. Leonardo something. I believe they're named after painters or something, or Renaissance people. Like Michelangelo, Leonardo. And again, look at how it looks very scrapbooky as well, just because of the random. It feels like random shapes, and they're kind of like, you know how in Photoshop you have the cutout filter. It does have those vibes where the edges are a bit more sharp, straight, right? And when they render, they're not like painting. Like you don't feel the form as much because that's not how they render it. It's more about shapes in their work. So this is the Rhino guy. I believe is a villain in the, yeah. Look at how some lines are like a basic sort of round brush, like you can tell, but some are like they're using some kind of pencil brush or charcoal brush. Essentially, there's a lot more texture in it, right? And these bits over here where they seem kind of random. I mean, they are, but they're kind of almost perfectly placed. Like you don't want to overdo these random strokes. Yeah, they're random, but you can overdo these kinds of things. I'm not sure what. Oh, this is Venom. Can we zoom in? I'm trying to find Venom's face. Oh, I see it. Let me just open this in a new tab. This is Spider-Man, right? Over here. And then this is Venom's eyes, Venom's mouth. Oh, this is his long tongue. Very creative. And obviously the teeth. Some rake brushes here and there. Lots of textures. And maybe a noise filter in the end as well to sort of tie everything together. Yeah, look at that. Like this could be like a cover for a magazine or something, right? I just love the variety of. I mean, there are spots here where it's basically a silhouette, right? A very clean sort of shape. But in some parts, you have, for example, for this area over here, it's a lot more brushy, a lot more rough. So just seeing that range of textures and shapes, it's just nice to look at. Very visually appealing. It is a bit different from like the concept art stuff, uh, you will see more of this sort of creativeness in the graphic design kind of world. Cool. I mean, look at how they're able to simplify as well the characters. Meaning, you know who these people are just because of the colors being used. I mean, everyone knows Venom is like black, right? And he has like long eyes, sharp teeth, long tongue. Like the most colorful thing about Venom would have to be just his tongue, right? Or the insides of his mouth. Spider-Man, I'm not sure where this blue comes from. Well, I think Spider-Man does have blue. Although this blue is a bit light for Spider-Man. I believe it's a much more navy dark blue. But you can tell by the eyes and obviously the context. Venom being here, this clearly is Spider-Man, right? And again, negative space. Let me just draw this guy in. Bring out my pen. Look at that. So Venom takes up pretty much a center image and does like a cross thing, right? Spider-Man is sort of like a complementary thing that happens here. Same thing for this green part. Like you want to find something to balance your image. For example, in the beginning, you can be a bit random with your big shape, but in the end, you have to make sure that in the empty space, there needs to be something there that sort of balances it out. For example, let me just draw something here. If you have like if this is your canvas or frame, in the beginning, you can be somewhat random. You can pretty much put anything in this frame. One big thing, basically, let's say, I don't know, you put it here in the corner, like this is your main sort of subject. You want to find something that helps balance this by maybe adding something here. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be, you can't have empty space. I mean, yes, there's technically empty space here, but when you add this sort of thing in contrast to this guy over here, it just helps balance the frame. I recommend checking out the work of Spart. He does a lot of environmental concept art, and look at the way he balances out the image. Like almost everything he does has nice composition. I think it's a good example also of the whole negative space thing. So like he knows how to balance the image. And for him, obviously, he does environment, so it's going to be way more complex. But somehow he's still able to balance everything out because in the end, or fundamentally, like for example, if he draws like a ship here, he'll draw like a building here, and then maybe a guy here. You know how it's like he knows how to fill up a page and not make it look boring. And maybe if this is too empty, you add maybe a little spaceship over here, right? So I think it does take a little bit of a intuition. And also, if you look at a lot of artworks, images, illustrations, or photography that has good composition, that has a good sort of application of negative space, I think you're gonna subconsciously acquire that intuition. So expose yourselves to a bunch of images, kind of like ZHoU. You know, just watch the way he or she or they um, sort of center the main subject and how they balance it out with some blobs. For example, for this guy, just adding that sort of orange thing at the top, where those bubbles, those random splatter brushes, or even those gradients. You can see a bit of a gradient in the left, top left corner, right? And even in the bottom of this image. These things help balance out the frame. I believe I did see Chun-Li somewhere here. I do like it for her. Kind of hot. So we have one here and we have one here. Let me just open this in a new tab. Oh, come on. Look at that. And again, for the actual subject matter, in this case, Chun-Li, look at how it's not all colored. You will have some white here, even in the face of Chun-Li. So it almost looks like it's highly exposed, or it's a, just look at any photograph that has high exposure. The lightest part is pretty much going to be white. It's so, it doesn't mean, like, yeah, they're using negative space. They know how to fill up this uh, area. But even within this sort of space, it doesn't mean everything is colored. You can leave a lot of white sort of highlights, I guess, in. Um, yeah. And in those parts, you can, if you need to define an edge without using color, you can just use a line. For example, for this bun of Chun-Li, because I think she has two buns or two like ball thingies in her head. That's kind of her hairstyle. Um, in this case, I think they painted this part, right? But for this one, it doesn't really have color, so they just made sure they added this quick line to capture that bun. And again, the variety of textures, pretty cool. Let me just go further down. Oh, this is a Ray from Evangelion. Oh, always a good thing seeing Ray, right? Look at that. And if you look at the expressions, the proportions rather, it's kind of exaggerated, but it still works. You know, like, you know, again, who, oh, I do see some color dynamics turned on, and I believe they're using a round brush for this part over here, right? And look at how the, for example, for this hand, it's so like abstract, but you know it's clearly a hand, right? Um, they're very artsy. Oh, I'm forgetting another artist. Like, they do a lot of warrior, like Chinese warrior types of concepts. Like, it looks like they're using just a lasso fill tool for their artwork. I'm gonna try mentioning their name. I'll try finding them in the, like, after this video. But even this detail of this sort of, I'm not sure what this is, but it's part of their. For those of you who have seen Evangelion, like, even if it's not fully detailed, like this costume design, like just by the color scheme and these details here and there, even if they're mixed in with a bunch of random stuff, even this green part over here, like, you know it's her. I mean, look at this whole gray part over here. It doesn't even make sense, but it works, right? And I think that's what's cool about art is you can break some rules. I mean, you can't totally be. I think I've mentioned this before. I'm not a fan of like the super abstract stuff where it doesn't even make sense anymore. Like late stage Picasso. Like, there's a limit to my abstraction, but um, I think that even though this may not be a preferred style, I think once in a while, just to switch things up, to sort of break the monotony of things, try this. Just go wild. Don't be so tight. And I think if you're someone who's, if you struggle with one is to one sort of, what I mean by one is to one is you have one reference, right? Let me just use my pen for this one. I was using my mouse. So let's say you have a reference. Oftentimes, when you have one reference, if you're not paying attention, you end up just copying that thing. So all you're doing is creating like a the same thing, and that's not usually the intention of the artist. Usually, you just want to study like one part and get something, maybe just 10% of that image that you find valuable. So if you're having this sort of issue where you end up just copying the image, I think going abstract, going abstract, I think is a good way to sort of break it down or break that inclination, right? Basically, it's being able to not be attached to, rules, right? To what's right. So basically, I think this style is about learning how to break things. Learn how to break things while not destroying it. Whoa, I'm so smart. I think that's my takeaway. I mean, it looks fun to do, so I want to try it. Let me go back. So we have Asuka or Asuka over here. You can tell again with the colors, with the hair sort of style. We have Misato over here, the mommy sort of character from Evangelion. And yeah, when you're doing these sort of exercises, maybe just try picking a character you like. It doesn't have to be an OC. Like you don't have to create everything from scratch. You can just take something that's already well known or that you know personally that you find interesting and find a way to break that thing or abstract that thing without necessarily destroying the whole concept altogether. That And look at how they're revisiting certain ideas. I mean, recently we've seen some Ninja Turtles, right? So now we're seeing a different version where it's kind of like a full body thing. And these ones are not even as abstract as the ones earlier. They have more of a solidness there. They have, I forgot her name. Oh, Harley Quinn. Jesus. So hot. I do miss her like a red costume, the red and black, where she looks like the actual Joker, like in the card. There's usually like a female with the two dangly thingies. For those of you who have like a set of cards, you know what I mean. I do miss that look. It's very cute, very kawaii. So we have the Joker here again. You know what? Spider-Man is pretty cool too. Let me just go back to Spider-Man. Playing music, the violin, the trumpet. Is it or saxophone? Who knows? Yeah. But going back to that guy who asked about negative space, I did mention quite a few artists, but in general, I believe you need to dive into graphic design. I think a lot of them have a good understanding of negative space. I think a lot more than artists in other fields. I believe this is Gwen, the sort of blonde, blue-eyed Spider Girl who died. I know she's not dead in like this version, but in the live action version, with Andrew Garfield. Hopefully, I'm saying his name right. Andrew Garfield. Such a bad way to go. For those of you who've seen the movie, it was so horrible. Like that made me nauseous. And I know they did an homage in the Marvel multiverse Spider-Man where they had three different versions of Spider-Man. Um, yeah, they gave like an homage scene with Zendaya, and it was also Andrew Garfield, but this time he was able to save this girl. But in this case, it was Zendaya or whatever her name is in the movie. I mean, it's cute, but Gwen is still dead. So. Come on. Um, so yeah, I do recommend this artist. Oh, check out Kizerilla as well. I was about to say Krizilla. Kizerilla. I recently reviewed his work. Um, Not necessarily because of the abstraction, but because of his work is pretty dynamic, right? So, um, and because I do see that, obviously, because the subject matter here is Spider-Man or like superheroes, so they tend to be in like action uh poses, or they're in act some kind of pose that's in action. So if you need some inspiration, check out Kizerilla or Koran Kaiser Stone. And yeah, so that's it for this RTV of ZHoU or ZhoouU. I will link this page again in the description below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.